Okay, so I'm going to take about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, and then there is going to be a participation element of what's going on. So everybody just get ready for that, if you would. So as Evangeline said, I'm not doing her name very well, said, my name is Francine. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Musical Health Technologies. We have a digital health platform, not a digital therapeutic, that uses singing very specifically as a therapeutic tool to treat a variety of healthcare conditions. My joke is I've been in tech so long, the platform debate when I started was VHS versus beta. So I have been around a long time in this game. And my specialty has always been, how do you take something brick and mortar and scale it? So, for example, I was on the first rollout of cars.com and apartments.com and all of those kinds of things in the mid-90s in that original Web 1.0 day. However, what kept happening to me is I kept working for these companies that would say, we're CitySearch, we're your whole community at one address, and we're going to democratize the media, or we're going to do all of these big things. At the end of the day, people started running out of money, and we would end up as an advertising platform for Coke and Pepsi. And one day I was at a meeting after the bust, and we were all working for digital marketing companies, and they said, can you come in this room and help us brainstorm? Saying, sure, I'll come in and help you brainstorm how to get kids to stay in the McDonald's. Love. And I was like, I'm out. So I went back to school and I got a master's degree in something called future studies. And this is the study of the probable, possible, and preferable futures. So the probable futures, the future that everybody thinks is going to happen, 1950s, everybody thought computers are going to be as big as a room, right? But all over the world, the possible futures are being born. So whether that's technology, whether that's social change, whether that's environmental changes, depending on what it is, there's all these probable futures being born. And in the 70s and 80s, when future studies was first, became an academic discipline, this is what a lot of futurists did, was help companies really horizon scan, understand what the possibilities, organizations, countries do that. I like to work in the preferable future category. So this is when you have mapped what the possible futures are, get a group of people together and you decide what is the preferable future that we are all actually going for. Because to Ben's point, the sort of social impact of what we do is not getting measured. This was my problem, and I wanted to help create a preferable future where there was this more social equity in the world. And how do we harness technology and innovation, which I love, in order to do that? So my company is both a company that's about proving music as medicine is a real thing, and it's also about saying that, hey, we're going to have these preferable futures where we can have a society where bigger isn't always better, better is better, right? So all of that said, I combine this sort of affinity with innovation very naturally because I had a father who is what is now called a serial entrepreneur, but we call him a crazy inventor. And what he also was an opera student. And so he was in the army in between the Vietnam and the Korean Wars. He would sneak out dates. We'd go to opera lessons. The guy in the opera, he stands, and it was he back then. You'll sometimes see a little hood at the front of the stage. The opera prompter would stand there, he'd go to the rehearsals, he'd listen to where the singers were weak in their lyric. There are all these big foreign language and kind of librettos. And then he'd go to the performance and actually prompt the words of the song to the singers right before that happened. My dad, driving back and forth in the 1960s, said, "Want the opera prompter in the car?" That tape had just been invented. The technology and infrastructure was not there to create what my dad wanted to create. So instead, what he did was he got married. We had my brother, we had me, and he basically socially and genetically engineered us to carry out his dream. So I went into tech, got his entrepreneurial side, definitely. I'm very happy with a blank page. Give me a blank page, I'll build you anything. Give me a form, and I'll have a nervous breakdown. We were launching in the UK in October, And the most frequently asked question I get from our partners in the UK is, Rachel, have you finished the paperwork yet? Because we want to give you money, we want to help, we want to do all this because, to the point, to sort of the point of reimbursement in the UK, singing is actually something that's reimbursed by both the social and healthcare system in the UK, where it is not necessarily in the US. Going on there. At the same time, I had a brother who sort of self-professed kind of dumb job in high school, right? But then was going to be a baseball player, threw out his arm after his freshman year of college. A very good friend of his named Sean. My brother's name is Andy. His friend's name is Sean. He was in a very bad car accident. And he was in a coma. And my brother, through my father, but also some other reading that he did, learned that you really need to stimulate the brains of people in comas. This is over 25 years ago now. So Andy would go to Sean's ICU every night, and he would play the 4 songs from the 3 chords that he knew. And 3 months later, Sean, surrounded by his family, came out of the coma, mouthing the words to "Should we hear with my brother." So really incredible. And then we would go to the rehab hospital. We would hang Sean there, and he would play the same 4 songs, and everybody from the rehab and sing, and people had strokes, and all of these kinds of things were engaging with Andy. And somebody at the rehab hospital said, "Oh, have you heard about this thing called music therapy?" And so Andy went to Stanford University, which is one of the music therapy programs in the country. And while he was there, he called me one day. And the frustrating thing about my dad was that no matter how crazy the idea seemed, there was always an element of truth and power to what he said. And so Andy called me, and he goes, "Rachel," like, "Yeah. You know that lyric talking thing of dad's?" "Yeah." He's like, "It's an evidence-based music therapy practice that's used for everything from restoring speech after traumatic brain injury to elevating dementia." So it took us a while, but eventually we started a company when the app economy came into being, and we, a medical device back then, created a company called SingFit to do just that. We're very fortunate. Both of these things actually came through part of our relationship with AARP. We're part of the HTech collaborative with AARP. They can practice some works in our company. Part of the reason that I talked about the problem and affordable futures, and that my sort of role as a futurist too, is because in futures, and it's always plural, anybody who ever does the future of anything, a presentation, please put an S on it, because there's multiple futures. There's not one future. And just saying the future of takes away agency for us to be able to change. Both in future studies, I'm just checking my time, and over on About Me, is one of those future studies is what's called an applied futurist and a normative futurist. And an applied futurist is paid by a company like Paramount to tell you what the future of entertainment is, and they are going to expose you to VR and hundreds of millions of dollars in VR. There's also what's called a normative futurist, that is somebody who comes to the table and says, "This is my ethics, these are my morals, this is the perspective that I come from." So in my sort of standing here, because I was in an academic setting and not a commercial setting, I wanted to be very clear that I do have an applied science mindset. I'm about medicine, that's what my company is about. I'm also about how do we use all of this, different kinds of, to Jacqueline's point, where are these kids? How can we find all of the people? How can we get these interventions to everybody, not just fortunate few? So that's about me and the probable, possible, and preferable futures. Oh, these 2 things from AARP, the top one, I got to speak at the UN on National Older Persons Day. They need somebody at least 50, and I had just turned 50, so I was like, I will do it, and I'm very proud to do it. It was a wonderful experience. In addition, the Consumer Electronics Technology Foundation, which you guys, if you're not a part of, really should be. It's people who put on CES, but it's the foundation part, so they're interested in inclusion and equity and how we get technology to everybody. Very important. through the CPA Foundation and our relationship with AARP. The BBC just did a 6-minute film on our company that you can see if you go to Technology's Golden Age. You can hear a couple of those jokes repeated because they're in the film. And so, that's about me. So, moving on to the participatory part of this. What we have done and what we'll get into is that we took that lyric prompting that the opera prompters did and the therapeutic, the evidence-based music therapy practice of audio prompting or verbal prompting, and we created an app out of it. And instead of showing you the app, and this is where I have to do that thing where I go into the brand part, which I might need a little help with because this is all fancy technology over here. Do we want to exit full screen? How do I get to the brand? There. This is the audio one.
Is that them?
It's Joy. There we go. Okay.
So just turn off the mic on TV. Just let me know.
Okay, I'm about to turn off the mic. So all you guys have to do when we hit play is listen and sing, right? You're part of a group and nobody's going to hear your voice, and I guarantee you're going to know the words to the song.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Was a good friend of mine. I never understood a single word he said, but I helped him drink his wine. And he always had some mighty fine wine. Singing joy to the world. All the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea.
Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea.
Joy to you and me.
Joy to you and me.
If I were the king of the world,
The king of the
tell me
world.
what I'd do. I'd throw away the cars and the bars and the war.
Cars and the bars and the
Make sweet
floor.
love to you.
Make sweet love to you.
Joy to the world.
Joy to the world.
All the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea.
Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea.
Joy to you and me.
Joy to you and me.
Joy to the world.
To the world.
All the boys and girls. Joy to the world.
World.
Joy to you and me.
To you and me.
Joy to the world.
World.
All the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me.
Joy to you and me.
Joy to the world. Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
For those of you who did sing, and then how do I get back to full screen? Probably that little button. So for those of you who did sing, let me ask you a question. Does anybody feel different now than they did before they sang? No, silly. Is that mean happier or just like? Anyone else? Have it feel any different? No difference?
A little more weight.
Little more weight? Anyone else maybe feel a little bit more like mood elevation, tiny bit happier?
Yeah, happy. And also more energetic.
Exactly.
Almost like a post-workout.
Exactly. Okay. The song's also about this. But it's because it's being crazy, right? Which is one of my mother who well one of her favorite songs to sing. If I can get her sing. Anyone else? Any other? What?
With the words that I actually do now, I feel like the vibration in my chest and like how like a happiness, part of like a synchronicity with it. So
Okay, so there's a lot in there, even though maybe I need to pick a different song next time. Which is this. When you are singing, Here's a sacrament to you. You are getting a full brain bi-hemisphere workout. Okay, waking you up, right? This is part of why singing is really good for dementia, right? It's a little bit like turning on the car and having gas in it, right? You need that spark to get it going. You also are regulating all the good neurochemicals. Your oxytocin, your serotonin, your dopamine, your melatonin, your cortisol, right? So there's some healthcare people in the room. Can anyone come up with anything that might happen to you if any of those things were optimized a little bit better? So if your dopamine and your cortisol are more regulated, lower blood pressure, less stress, right? All of these kinds of things. So dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, these are the kind of things we try to manipulate with anti-anxiety, antipsychotic, drugs, antidepressants, right? What's also happening is we got heart rate variability, right? Heart rate variability is really important to heart attacks. Your heart rate variability becomes optimized, as you say. A lot of this goes like that, back to many of the things you were saying about rhythm, right? And the importance of rhythm in your body, which we can get into tomorrow. But also found that when you sing, especially in a group, it actually strengthens your immunity, right? To the point when we talk about IBDNF, but you do somebody with nutrition, it can help increase the IBDNF in your brain, which is the thing that starts to wither with dementia. Not surprising, talked about how you had a tingle or like your breath, right, in the way that it's synchronized and vibrating. You're getting a full sort of respiratory workout. So in all of these things, and just for people who are different kinds of visual learners, here's the actual studies about this stuff, where you can see that neuroplasticity, how that might apply to dementia, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury, with neurochemical regulation. This is about treating depression, anxiety, different psychiatric conditions, respiration. A lot of great work is being done out of the UK, where they're really finding that singing in a group is the best and most cost-effective mental health intervention for older adults. So this is why we actually were invited over to the UK by the NHS, because over here, again, there's no reimbursement. Over there, there is. We're like, we know this works. We know it's cost-effective. Come on over and we're going to help you with all that. Just get your paperwork done. So the one thing I want to point out is that this is not something that is just for older adults. So we decided to start with older adults because of the music catalog. So everybody's like, healthcare is very challenging, like nothing like the music industry. It's completely impossible, totally unregulated, very difficult to get music licenses to do what we did. So we started with the music catalog, but this can only be done from pregnant mother, a woman who's pregnant, not only will singing regulate her own neurochemical balance, so that things like oxytocin are present. If there isn't oxytocin present when this is going to bond parents to babies, but especially mothers, right, in a very critical time. If you can increase that oxytocin level, you're going to increase the bond between mother and child, which low oxytocin levels are related to postpartum depression, right? So this is where the mental health capacity comes in. But at the same time, they've also shown that hearing familiar voices sing while in utero actually builds a better brain structure for the baby itself. So this is, while a lot of what I'll talk about today has to do with older adults, really this is the womb to hospice solution that can be used really for just about anything. There are other products, other solutions on the market that make use of passive music listening. This is a good thing in many ways. Even companies like Spotify, right? Somebody was talking about that. Spotify, like one of their most popular, the sleep guy, Ernst Young, right? For Spotify, one of their most popular playlist selections is how do I get to sleep, right? So they're really focused on that. But with music listening, this isn't entirely accurate depiction, just in case there's very specific neuroscience to the brain, but you're only a very small part of your brain. And in order for it to have a neurochemical effect on you, it has to connect with you emotionally. So it actually takes somebody very sophisticated to be able to program that music so that it's going to affect your emotion in the correct way. Whereas when you're singing, virtually all parts of your brain are lighting up simultaneously. And so that's why, if you look at this, and this is not my chart, this is someone else's brain, you'll see that these are all of the different parts of the brain, or some of the different parts of the brain that get activated with music. And the ones that I sort of circled in blue, these are the ones that specifically apply to making music. Definitely talking about, learning an instrument. Learning to sing and actively singing is very similar, right? There's a couple different things. But for example, up here, you're talking about the motor cortex, right? So when you are singing, especially, and then if you put movements along to it, which we do in our program, your motor planning system is coming into effect, right? That's not happening when you're listening to music. But it does happen when you're singing or when you're playing an instrument, right? Similarly, the sensory cortex, like sort of the feedback, someone else was talking about that, the feedback and sensing, that part of the brain is also being activated. And then the parts of the brain that are connected in musicians is stronger and denser than it is in people who have not studied music. So essentially, get yourself, doing music and singing, and active music making has benefits over passive music listening, though I'm not bashing it at all. One of the most famous cases of singing as therapeutic tool being used with Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. Does anyone remember that she had left hemisphere brain trauma? To use your rhetorical little device, does anybody know what happens when you damage the left hemisphere of your brain? Typically, what you lose? Your ability to speak. So if either it's external damage from a gunshot wound, if it's a stroke, whatever it might be, left hemisphere damage, typically you lose the ability to speak. The old notions of neuroscience is once it's gone, right? But now we understand the idea of brain plasticity. So in the case of Gabrielle Giffords, what happened was she went to a rehab hospital, very best in class care. She had both a speech therapist and a music therapist who would use that same technique that you guys just did with getting the music prompted to her. She would sing, brain plasticity would take over. And this is actually what she herself credits with restoring her ability to speak. The challenge in all of this is that there's only 10,000 certified music therapists in the country, as opposed to, say, 120,000 occupational therapists. The variety of reasons in this one is that it's musicians, and they're not the most quantitative in the world. It's taken them a little while to build up and get the neurologists on board to build up the body of evidence to do it, to prove it. So, like I said, I'm all about the scaling. And so, this is a new slide for me that actually gave me a little bit of a mental breakthrough myself and how we talk about this, because basically what we're doing is the same thing that happened in about the 1800s, right? Which is up until the 1800s, medicine was a person-to-person sort of interaction. You had to go in, you had to grind up whatever herb had the active ingredient to the medication or the medication that you wanted. It's all in nature. You have to do it one-on-one. Early in the 1800s, they were able then to start taking the active parts of that plant and put it in pill form. And then as the 1800s went on and industrialization came into effect, we were able to make a variety of pills for a variety of conditions. Now these things can be used for all manner of disease, right? And so this is essentially where we are with music as medicine right now, which is that when we started out, almost everybody in this room, your first medical intervention was some parent singing you a lullaby, trying to get you to sleep. right? Scientifically prescribed. There's not someone going, okay, here's the outcome we want, and here's the pathway or the algorithm, as we would now call it, to get you there. And so that's what my presentation went away. But that's essentially what we are doing now. And while he's getting that back up, what I'll say is this is like nutrition. I'll have a nutrition lady left, although that's her, I think maybe her thing. But in that it used to be that music and singing were culturally embedded into almost every culture on earth. You were sitting around the fire singing, you were going to church and singing, you were going to school and singing. If you couldn't, you could, in the 1700s, every kid, was learning to play an instrument, 1800 people learning to play an instrument, because in order to have music, you had to make music together as a family. And we have taken that out of our society in general. And so part of our greater mission is how do we just like good nutrition is sort of fundamental to what people are saying. You didn't need great nutrition when you were on the farm 16 hours a day. You could eat 6 eggs, who cared? Because you were working the mom all day. But at the same time now, we have taken the making of music and we've made it so that only if you are a good singer can you sing. Only if you're Adele, only if you're Beyonce are you allowed to sing. So the idea here is how do we not only introduce singing as a therapeutic tool back into the system at large, but how do we do it in a way that is targeted in the way that pharmaceuticals are targeted to get consistent outcomes for specific states. So these are just so that you guys get it, just a few of the companies, and we're going to take credit from yours too, but a few of the companies that are using music as a therapeutic intervention. And as I spoke about, most of these fall into the music listening category. So less therapeutic, ultimately scalable, but less therapeutic. Over here, you've got things like dementia choirs, which are awesome, or guitars for vets, but they still require this sort of person-to-person interaction. You've got your 7,000 to 10,000 therapists, and then over here, you have a few scalable solutions that are using active music making. Mechanisms, this for gait, for Parkinson's disease, and interaction with that. Music allows you to do that for physical rehabilitation. They're very limited in what types of conditions they can target. Whereas SingFit, we are able, as you saw from that chart, to target multiple conditions. Okay, 12 minutes. So what we have done is created a process to the center of what we do. There's an app. You guys already kind of experienced that, right? So the app just separates the tracks of the music. It's got that prompting track, lead singer track, music, and then there's a recording track. We'll go into, and then we have essentially, we want to understand what condition are we targeting, right? Then we have what we call a song printed music database. And so there's 50 points of data on every song. We know how much breath support it takes in the song. We know how many syllables are in the middle of it. So that how many syllables you have to repeat. We know the energy level. And then we ask questions so that we're able to create a personalized intervention that we have in a group, one-to-one, or a solo setting. Now, the thing is that I'm going to actually do this a little differently. I'm going to go here. The first solution we had on the market, it's been on the market for 7 years now. We are in like quarter 38, creating playlists for group sessions in senior living communities. So we're in over 600 of them now around the country. And the kind of results that we get with this, especially when people with dementia are doing it, what we see is decrease in agitation, decrease in what is called here behaviors. We get elevated mood. You get more community. We did this is about mental health in particular. When you sing, you're able to, and this is not just us, but you're able to reduce the amount of medications used. And so there's lots of studies on this. We in particular did one where you were able to, in four participants in an adult day program who participated in SingFit, they were looking to reduce their antipsychotic and anti-anxiety medication by the PRN and the as-needed medication by 20%, and they were able to reduce it by 40%. And so we've had that solution on the market for quite a long time. What is just coming on now, which you guys can get a better sense of, or you guys are getting a first look at, is our new platform. And what this platform does now is asks, what condition, who are you? Are you a speech therapist? Are you an occupational therapist? Are you an audiologist? Are you a love economy caregiver? Love economy, a term coined by economist Hazel Henderson, for all of the unpaid work that goes on in the world. And then it'll ask you, what's your ultimate goal for this person, right? Let's say that they have COPD. So ultimately your goal is, I'm going to increase lung capacity, breath capacity for them. But what do we know about COPD is that, I won't use a rhetorical device, is one of the biggest problems with COPD is not the inability to breathe. It is the fear and the anxiety around not being able to breathe. And that results in a lot of unnecessary emergency visits. So what we ask is, we already know much information now, including something called the reminiscence bump. We find out how old are they. This is a music therapy thing that we've adopted. We ask how old because you're all gonna like search your memory and then probably nod your head, which is the music you listen to between the ages of 13 and 24, is the music that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. So this is music that will follow you into dementia. So you know that about that. So our goal today is to reduce anxiety, how anxious is Sandy now, how involved in activities, and then the app will create a playlist. Now, does anyone here have kids? Raised kids? Okay. So that kid's bouncing up and down, right, off the wall. It's bedtime, and get to sleep. Do you think playing a lullaby right off the bat, get that kid to sleep? Probably not, right? So what you do, this is called mood matching in music therapy. This is what you want to do is you want to match the energy level of their preferred song. You find a song that match that, and then you can pull algorithmically, we pull the energy level down. So eventually you're in a more calm state. Conversely, if you're trying to get them right, and then all of that, then we get them singing, we give them song of choice. This is very important in dementia. One of the challenges of dementia is all choice is taken away from people usually. So we write this in a way where they are then given choice, to get reports and all of those kinds of things out of it. So this is all to say, so I want to talk specifically about our solution, but how it relates to the bigger picture and what you can do with active singing. So talk a little bit about our group scenario. This was created very specifically because we went to a couple of adult day programs in California, and we said, once we decided we were going to focus on dementia as our first line of solution, we said, what's your problem? And they said it's this part of dementia where people start to socially isolate, right? And they won't participate anymore because they're embarrassed, because they can't really keep up with everybody. So we created a program that basically mimicked what a music therapist would do in that situation. And this is where we get back to scale. We made it so that anybody can facilitate this program. They don't need to be a musician because they have the app, and they don't need to know anything about music because we literally write 12 playlists every quarter with 8 songs and trivia and everything that a music therapist would do, but it can now be done by an activities director or somebody like that. Kind of the caregiver and SingFit PRIME are essentially the same thing, the app scenario that I just took you through. But what we've been able to find, I'm going to focus on Pro for a minute, which is getting somebody engaged in the speech therapy process with dementia is very hard. So even though CMS and Medicare reimburse for up to 6 sessions in a particular time period, most people don't make it through all those 6 sessions. The speech therapist can't keep people engaged. we created a pilot to show can we keep people not only for the succession, but create improvements, whether it's in the number of words per session, whether it's, their ability to perform words. And what we found is that we could get people through 24 sessions with a speech therapist because they were able to sing at first to engage them, so kids with video games in the process of singing. We also have a video-based version of this that came out during COVID. So what I just want to end on, maybe I'll make you guys sing one more time. But what I wanted to end on here is just showing you how this can work in a real life situation.
And soon I'll hear, old winter song, old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves, start to fall.
It's awfully hard to tell somebody what I experienced
Yes.
because it was like a miracle.
And so the miracle that you're saying you experienced was what?
My voice returned.
Line of emotion.
So you did a wonderful job explaining the product. This might be a marketing question or something. I'm just curious. I work with a lot of senior centers. I know a lot of volunteer directors that love the product and will make their lives a lot easier, other than the clients arguing about which marketing day out to put on or whatnot. This is actually good for them. Are you experiencing success in marketing to senior centers, caregivers that can find out on your day or just in general?
Yeah. So I guess that's relative because as anyone's tried to sell it, senior living it's very difficult. But we have success in that we're at over 600 locations. We're at all 260 of the Sunrise communities. So we've shown that we can do that scale and really roll out that way. And then we're also at near our community hospital in Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere, getting those resources to people who don't have access. So we have had, I think, for the industry, when you're talking about technology being so crazy and everything, it's not just accounting software. We have, besides a company called IN2L, which is Better Too Late, we have the biggest in there. So we have had that.
I'll get it the next time I go.
And I now have, we raised some money last year, so we now have a sales staff of 4, which I never had before, so it's very exciting.